Boom. They have eyes everywhere. For every 45 seconds that you use your phone, there is a secret screenshot that is being taken of whatever your phone is looking at. That screenshot is then used to compile a report, and it sends it directly to somebody that you know. It screenshots literally everything. Your messages, your email passwords, your Amazon purchases, articles that you're reading, whose profile you're viewing on Instagram, the things that you do on incognito mode. It is screenshotting your phone at least once a minute. And it's not like it's every minute, so you can time it. If it just took a screenshot, which you wouldn't really know, but if it did, theoretically, you have a minute to do something on your phone that is completely private before another screenshot is taken. But it's not like that. It's just completely random. It's sporadic. I mean, it sounds like something Palantir would do or some shady defense contractor that worked for the NSA, but it's just an app that you can download on your phone, a public software that anyone can willingly install on their phone and their devices. And there is a company making tens of millions of dollars in revenue every single year because people want a screenshot of their phone taken every minute. It's the Covenant Eyes. It's a software that you install on all your devices that monitors and makes sure that you do not watch any explicit videos where adults do adult things. And in the event that you do, the software will take a screenshot of your phone, whatever page and video you're on, and send in a weekly email to your wife, husband, church leader, boss, accountability partner, whoever they might be. It's a spying like spying on the phone, or they call it not spyware, shameware. Okay. Do people know when they're being like someone installed it? Uh-huh. They willingly install it. Oh, okay. So it's not a secret. No. Okay. You willingly do it. One Redditor breaks down the Covenant Eyes like this. This is from a few years ago. So there could have been a bunch of software updates, but there are 3 main services. It has screen accountability, website blocker, and safe search. Screen accountability being the most important. Quote, it's their patented software that will periodically take screenshots of your screen. AI then will analyze it, and then it blurs all of the screenshots slightly, and then you and your accountability partner get a weekly report with some of these screenshots. And if you didn't look at X-rated videos, then the report will just say you didn't look at X-rated videos. It encourages you to look at their screenshots for anything that they might have missed. And if you did look at X-rated videos, it will attach those specific screenshots, and it will report to your partner that you try to look at X-rated videos. The website blocker will block any website that is mature. So you can set it to like teen, mature, adult, mature, and teen mature. I believe even Reddit is hard to get on. Interesting. Safe search will make sure no explicit content comes up on any search engine. And all of this data gets sent to your partner. If you want to uninstall Covenant Eyes, you have to call a number, and once you call them and confirm you want to uninstall, they give you a code. Your accountability partner will receive a notification saying you did this. There are over 1.7 million users that have been watched by the Covenant Eyes, including House Speaker Mike Johnson, who back in 2008, he had some very interesting views. He says that the fall of the Roman Empire had to do in part due to rampant homosexual behavior. Mike Johnson has also previously stated that being gay is, quote, inherently unnatural and a dangerous lifestyle, as well as, quote, ultimately harmful and costly for everyone. Why is it costly for you, Mike Johnson, unless you're involved? Okay. He also weirdly kind of thinks that if we just let gay people get married, what's next? Someone's going to marry their dog. That's literally what he said. It totally makes a lot of sense if you're a homophobe with a hole in your brain. But in 2022, he spoke publicly about how he and his then 17-year-old son were both on Covenant Eyes, and they were each other's accountability partners. They would monitor each other's weekly X-rated video intake. Wait. So it not only takes screenshot of the video, it takes screenshot of everything. Correct? Yes. So it's like your bank account, your private data. They have all of that. Yeah, I know exactly where you're going with this. When he said this in 2022, everyone said, now wait a minute. Is that not a safety hazard to the United States of America? Yeah, but he never addressed it. He just said, Covenant Eyes is the software we've been using for a long time in our household. It scans all the activity on your phone or your devices, your laptop, tablet, what have you. We do all of it. And then it sends a report to your accountability partner. So my accountability partner right now is Jack, my son. He's 17. So he and I get a report of all the things that are on our devices once a week. If anything objectionable comes up, your accountability partner gets an immediate notice. I'm proud to tell you my son has got a clean slate. Yeah, okay. Perhaps he no longer uses it because he is a sitting member of Congress. I don't know, but it's just alarming. But what happens when you have Covenant Eyes and the content being viewed is not on a legal X-rated website? What if the content being viewed is not even legal and is just one of the most morally bankrupt, ethically bankrupt things that you can do on an electronic device that involves crimes against children? If there is CSAM, does it send an alert? Who gets alerted for that? Because that is what reality TV star Joshua Duggar gets arrested for. This is the case of the Duggars and the 3 arrests of Josh Duggar, and more recently Joseph and Kendra Duggar, and all of the potential crimes in between. A few intense disclaimers including religious trauma, grooming, incest, CSA. Please watch with caution. This is going to be a multi-episode series, so please take breaks whenever you feel overwhelmed. All the information is also publicly available. Any netizen comments, speculations, theories, or allegations or opinions of netizens. Legally, a lot of people are innocent until proven guilty, of course, except for the legally confirmed convictions that we're going to get into. And lastly, a lot of statements and quotes may be condensed for brevity. This is just going to be a massive deep dive. And another thing to note, this is not a take on religion. This is not me sending my ideological beliefs into the ether and hoping that you latch onto it. This is just a breakdown of the Duggar family and their beliefs. I have a whole wall of the cast of characters of every single Duggar family member because there are over 20 members of the family, and then there's spouses that get entwined into the family, and then they all have like 50 trillion children. And you'll see why, because they don't believe in any way. We're going to get there when we get there. If you want to know who the Duggars are, all of their first names start with a J. So all the J, Jana, John, David, like these are all the Duggars. Even when it doesn't make sense, they really stuck to the theme of naming everyone with a J. And so 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the order of the siblings. There's 19 siblings in total. 19 children birthed by one woman, Michelle Duggar, and her husband Jim Bob. Some people call him Jim Boob. Some people call him Boob. Some people call him Rim Job. It just matters on how much you dislike this character. What? Yeah. And so all of the Duggars, the original Duggars, they've got AJ in their name. And then a lot of them, they get married very early on, like when they're 18, 19, 20, they get married to the first person that they start dating. Their first kiss is usually at the altar. We'll get in there, but they're the people right next to the Duggar family. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's their birth order basically. Yes. And then all the people next to them are their spouses. And then this little number in between is how many children that they currently have. And people, netizens, love to track the number of Duggar grandchildren. It's like a thing we're going to get into there. Yeah. But first, Noel Berman is worth $40 million. Or at least that's what the estimate was at the time. And Noel is about to have a really shitty day, which Noel sometimes leans into. He has been known to be the most hated man on the internet. Who said that? He said that. He said it's all self-proclaimed. You're on the internet. You most likely have never even heard of Noel Berman. So why does he think that everybody hates him? July 12th, 2015, employees of a media company called Avid Life Media, run by Noel Berman, they walk into their Toronto office. This is like a corporate office. They open up their work laptops, and almost in unison, the AC/DC rock song thunderstruck, starts blasting on every single computer. It's like when you're listening to something, you don't pause it. You just close your laptop screen so that the next time you open it back up, it automatically starts playing. What's AC/DC rock song? It's like a rock band. They're goats. It's a very particular style of music. It's good. It's good. Okay. Okay. So it's just a crazy rock song. Very loud. Okay. I mean, they're famous, but what are the odds that every single employee at the office last night was listening to AC/DC's Thunderstruck on the highest volume, and then close their laptop, and then open it up at 9 a.m. in unison for it to be blasting again? Very unlikely. All of them are trying to turn off their sound, mute their computers, and then a message pops up. We're the Impact Team. We've taken over all systems in your entire office and production domains, all customer databases, source code repositories, financial records, emails. Shut down AM and EM. It will cost you, but non-compliance will cost you more. We will release all customer records, which AM and EM. If that were a grocery store or even like a frozen yogurt chain, that would be disastrous. Customer database just released to the public. But it's even worse because AM is Ashley Madison and EM is established men. These are dating websites. Oh, for cheaters. Oh, and a data hack and leak from either website is going to ruin millions of people's lives. And that's not even me speaking hyperbolically. Ashley Madison was run on the slogan, "Life is short, have an affair." So it's not just a dating website. It's a dating website where people go to cheat on their spouses. They launched in 40 countries. They had more than 37 million users. And the threat message continues. We will release all customer records, profiles with the customer's secret sexual fantasies, nude pictures and conversations, and matching credit card transactions, real names and addresses, documents and emails. Avid Life Media will be liable for fraud and extreme harm to millions of users. This is a big deal. Now, side note, Ashley Madison would even charge people extra money for, quote, full delete of their profiles. Because when you run an affair website, sometimes you're like, you know what? I got to delete and make sure there's no traces left of me being here. They had a $19 full delete. I mean, pretty economical if you ask me to hide an affair. And they were making $1.7 million in one fiscal year just off of this extra add-on of being able to fully delete your profile. I feel like they could have 10x CD that and make 10x the money. Exactly. People will pay. But here's the point of fraud. Nothing was ever really deleted. And the Impact Team is saying, I'm going to release it all. Even a former vice president of sales of the company would later say, I'm sorry. This is the company who owns Ashley Madison, or Avid Life Media owns Ashley Madison, Establishment, and a ton of other weird websites. Oh, so they just got hacked, and they're getting a threat message like, we're going to expose you for fraud. You're going to be liable for fraud because not only are we going to hack and leak all of the customer databases, they're going to know that you're not even deleting any of this information. The promise of security, anonymity, and safety was just something we said. It wasn't something we did. This is the former vice president of sales. Now, just overall, the way that Ashley Madison, the entire company, Avid Life Media, was run, their operational practices were clearly less than great. Noel Berman, the guy who ran Avid Life Media, he has stated that data into infidelity can help us make better choices. That was like the platform he was on. He was like, no, I know I'm sleazy. I run a fair website and I make millions of dollars off of it, but hold on. Hold on. This is really good data that we can latch onto, and we can make people have better marriages. We can help women make better choices. So it's only now with the advent of a site like mine that you can look at huge data. That's really robust. That's really interesting. And so for the first time, we get a chance to see what society's behaving like. And so that's really interesting to me. He says the day after Valentine's Day, it's a real slippery slope for when people have affairs. So maybe the day before you want to step up and play differently. Let's take this data and make it more consumable and give people a better roadmap to navigate at least the infidelity components of marriage. Wait, what does Valentine's Day have? What is he trying to say? So he's saying lots of people get up on Ashley Madison after the day after Valentine's Day. They're signing up. They're paying extra money for fees. They're messaging people. And he's saying it's because probably during Valentine's Day, you didn't get what you wanted. So he's saying, now, what can we do with this data? Probably women, listen up. You guys should be hotter for Valentine. That's the vibe he's giving. And the busiest day for affairs is Monday. And they like to say it's because the expectations of the weekend were not met. So maybe up it on the weekends. Weirdly putting blame on the partners that are being cheated on rather than the cheating partners. But like, what do you expect from the person who runs Ashley Madison? Noel Berman has just been known for saying some very weird, questionable, depressing things. He was asked by USA Today, "You have made the argument that monogamy is a failed experiment and infidelity is the way of the future. How can you say cheating helps a marriage? Infidelity has always been amongst us. It just happened to be the dominion of men for the most part. What I hear from the women in particular on my site, and even the men, is, I love my partner. I cherish my kids. I can't stand what doesn't happen in the bedroom. Most people are not willing to give it all up for a one-night stand of an encounter. What I'm saying is majority of people having affairs are looking to preserve their marriage, not leave it. People pursue affairs because they don't want to leave their marriage. They want to have their cake and eat it too. I acknowledge that. I'm not suggesting it helps the dynamic between the two individuals, but it might help them stay within the institution of marriage. What if people are having affairs to stay married? What if they love their children, their partner, their extended family, their economic situation? They're struggling with one element, which is monogamy. So what if they don't want to leave but want to break with monogamy? I think people unfortunately stray long before we create Ashley Madison. And so there's a lot of shooting the messenger, but we're just fulfilling a void that exists in a marketplace. Also, in the event that this information is not saddening enough, he says one of the more important groupings we have found on Ashley Madison is the first-time affair seeker 3 to 4 years into a marriage typically, and there's a real correlation factor with pregnancy. Yes, men look to stray 3 to 4 years into a marriage. It coincides very directly with that first child on the scene. Essentially, men start cheating on their wives because she is pregnant and exhausted from creating a human life, and then continue to cheat on their wives now because the wives are now exhausted from single-handedly caring for and raising that life that she just birthed out of her body. Don't you love data? And Noel Berman ran a website that clearly exploited such data by encouraging mostly men to have affairs. Now, side note, Noel Berman, I will say he did have access to some weird information that I don't know how accurate it is. I don't know if any of the conclusions coming from said data is important to anything. I'm not entirely sure. He just dropped random nuggets of statistics here and there, and I'm just going to drop it for you. It turns out that at least among our users, that's what he says, it seems to be the more women there are in a family, so the more daughters they have or the more sisters a man has, the more unfaithfulness there is. They also study cheating astrological signs. Their finding is Pisces men and Gemini women are the least faithful on their website. And ultimately Noel says, but is it really my fault? Yeah, I'm the most hated man on the internet. But if I shut down Ashley Madison tomorrow, do you intellectually genuinely believe that a single affair will not take place? You're shooting the messenger. This is societal life. So what happened with the whole hacking leaking situation? Yeah, so they get that, leak. They're like, we've got all your customer databases. We're about to leak it. Shut down Ashley Madison and shut down established men. And they don't. So then it gets leaked. It gets leaked, and it's an implosion, and someone on this board is involved in this leak. Okay, now, but because everything must come back to this as always, Noel Berman, was in the Epstein files. He was being introduced by a third party who emails Jeffrey Epstein and Noel writing, "Hi Jeffrey, I hope all is well. I want to introduce you to Noel Berman, who is the CEO of Ashley Madison and is now experiencing some of the downsides of their scandal. I was hoping that when Noel is next in New York that the two of you could meet and maybe you could help him think about life after a scandal. And in general, I hope all is well. Irrationally yours, done. Irrational indeed. Done. Okay, but why was Avid Life Media targeted by this impact team of anonymous hackers? Wait. Why is Noel trying to get connected with Epstein? Yeah, we don't know. It doesn't seem like they met. There's like a few back and forth emails that I could find. I mean, there's no definitive response of if they did meet or did not meet, but there's no confirmative email of like, hey, so nice to meet you. But why was Avid Life Media targeted by this anonymous hacking team? Is it just a bunch of scorned spouses who hate infidelity with a fire-burning passion and want to get rid of any safe space for the offenders and also have hacking experience? Valid reason enough, but there's a lot more to it. Avid Life Media. Let's start with Ashley Madison. That's like their bread and butter. This is their staple website. This is where they make the most money. This is the website that helps cheaters have discreet affairs. It's free for women to sign up like most clubs, and it's predominantly aimed at straight people. But they also have established men, the other website targeted by the hackers. It's essentially a sugar daddy website, supposedly to connect older wealthy men with young women, both wanting quote-unquote mutually beneficial arrangements, with it basically advertising female members are young and beautiful and mostly in their 20s and 30s. These women are looking for older and richer male partners, men who can afford to give them expensive gifts and monetary support. Then you have the counterpart of that, which was Cougar Life. Older women with younger men, which they called cougars and cubs. They had arrangement finders, another sugar daddy website, but more emphasis on direct and explicit transactional nature of it. Bro college girls, self-explanatory. They also have like a few smaller niche websites. But these are not just morally bankrupt sites. It's been reported that Avid Life Media employees would actively recruit escorts to join their sites like arrangement finders. And they had emails internally where they were discussing how they were going to grab foreign young women, smuggle them into the U.S., bypassing immigration to sign them up for these websites, which very loosely could be defined as human trafficking, sex trafficking. International, too. I'm not saying that they did this, but I'm just saying they were coming up with ways of like, well, how would we lie to immigration authorities about it? Which I feel like you're already trying to commit the crime. But this threat that shows up on the employees' computers reads, Avid Life Media runs Ashley Madison, the internet's #1 cheating site for people who are married or in a relationship to have an affair. ELM also runs Established Men, a prostitution human trafficking website for rich men to pay for sex. Trevor, ELM's CTO, Chief Technology Officer, once said protection of personal information was his biggest critical success factor. And quote, I would hate to see our systems hacked and the leak of personal information. Well, Trevor, welcome to your worst nightmare. We are the impact team, so they threaten Avid Life Media. Shut it down or we're leaking everything. They don't shut it down and they leak everything. And this is back in 2015. You had random housewives going on looking for their husbands' email addresses. You had journalists going and typing in every Gov email address, typing in all the celebrities' email addresses. It was an implosion. The damage was done. Profiles, billing information, addresses, full government names, messages are all exposed to the public. And the exposed aspect is multifaceted with this one. Like you obviously have the cheaters being exposed, but you also have Ashley Madison being exposed. And not just for their god-awful security measures that a 5-year-old could probably vibe code these days. One of the main things being exposed was the fact that Ashley Madison created more than 70,000 female bots. They had bots, and these bots were supposed to contact men, basically tricking men that they were talking to a woman who wanted to sleep with them, but they were just talking to a line of code. That makes sense. Yeah, because what woman is signing up for this website? If a woman wants to have an affair, she could probably just go to the grocery store. In the US alone, there were 19 million profiles, and 16 million of them were men. So who the hell are they talking to? It's not a local woman in their area who's hot and horny. Okay? It's a bot. And the coders would even sit there coming up with their best lines to entice the paying men who want to have affairs. And these are a bunch of dude coders because you can tell. So this is before like ChatGPT times. Yeah, because today. Yeah. And so they're writing to them. When I was younger, I used to sleep with my friends' boyfriends. This is like a female bot messaging husbands. When I was younger, I used to sleep with my friends' boyfriends. I guess old habits die hard, although I could never sleep with their husbands. I'm sexy, discreet, and always up for a kinky chat. Would also love to meet up in person if we get to know each other and think there might be a good connection, which then would push a lot of male users to purchase the $250 guaranteed affair premium, which then passes that customer along to a third-party affiliate who either provides a real person for the guy to chat to, which is usually not what happens, or they just straight up connect it with an escort service, because a guaranteed affair is a guaranteed affair. And because of the bot's god-awful messages, there are internal reports that Ashley Madison was pondering the idea of paying human women to engage with the men if a woman engaged with a man within 20 to 30 minutes of him buying credits. So he could message more, so he could connect with more women. She could be credited with 5% of the profit. They never executed this thought, but they thought about it, which is telling. They also previously got sued by a former employee who alleges that she was hired to create 1,000 fake female profiles within 3 weeks to make men think that there were more women willing to cheat than there actually was. The suit alleged that she hurt her wrist by typing to get so many profiles done, stating she became, quote, severely disabled. The company responded at the time by referencing a picture of her jet skiing, saying an unlikely activity for someone who was allegedly suffering serious injury to her wrist. Oh, and allegedly they were working on an app called What's Your Wife Worth? This app would let men submit pictures of their wife, and others would rate them. And with that, a dollar amount would be generated for how much men likely would be willing to spend for a one-night stand with your wife. They made that, or they were thinking about making that. They were thinking about it. Noel Berman was really excited about it, but he didn't like the developers on it. He said the website interface, the user experience was. I just cannot imagine how many customers there would be. So many customers there have been. You'll expose yourself for. Yes, but there have been so many Reddit threads where people post explicit photos of their wives, their girlfriends, and those get shut down. There have been so many weird. Oh, there's like an entire forum community of people talking about how to drug their wives and partners so that they could bring in other people. So I'm assuming that the demographic, the market cap would be large. During the hack, it is also revealed that the CEO of Avid Life Media, Noel, sought young escorts, which, like, why is that a scandal? I mean, it would seem like something that would happen. And everyone just assumed that this man is in an open relationship with his wife, whom he shares children with. But not all. His wife has publicly stated before the hack. I'm sure most people assume that because of what Noel does, we must be in an open relationship. But this is absolutely untrue. She states that she would be entirely heartbroken if she discovered Noel being unfaithful. We have such a great relationship and are open about our needs that it would really come as a big surprise. She says that she supports her husband's career, though, because he looks like a villain trying to tear apart relationships, that he's okay with infidelity. But in reality, all he's doing is bringing light to something people turn a blind eye to. He's not afraid to ask really tough questions. I imagine that she was the one asking tough questions when the affair was brought to light in the hack, and a lot of people were actually asking a lot of tough questions. Hunter Biden was named in the leak, to which he denied all involvement and stated that someone else clearly made an account using his email, which, side note, there is no email verification needed. So that could be very well true. But Hunter Biden is not particularly known as someone who doesn't have affairs. His most notorious affair being that with his own sister-in-law after his brother passed from brain cancer. There's that. But yeah, that was a whole thing in the Biden era. Yeah. The husband of a real housewife of New York was exposed to have an account. He stated he made one foolishly with a group of his buddies, for he has. A Florida Circuit Court judge who was then a prosecutor. This is the guy that prosecuted Casey Anthony. He was found in the leak, and he said, "I hope the public will judge me on my 35 years of service and not a bad mistake." He says he never cheated. He just signed about a curiosity. One Republican Party member was also outed for having a profile, and he said, "I did it for opposition research. I needed to see what the Dems were doing." A Christian YouTuber, Sam Ryder, and his name starts circulating on Twitter associated with the data leak. This is a Christian couple that makes Christian videos where they're like, "I serve my husband. And you know what? I have religious trauma, so I can have a little bit of sass with this one. Okay, but it's all like, this is how I serve my husband. I never question his leadership." And I'm like, I question literally everything in everybody's life all the time. Like, you should question more. You should have more question marks in your head, girly pop. But he was associated with the data leak. He says that during this time, this was a very vulnerable time in his life. He was working as a nurse and taking care of their firstborn son. So he was very overwhelmed, which naturally one would think that the way to decompress from life being overwhelming is to, I don't know, take a bath, take a Xanax if you must. But he says when life got overwhelming, he wanted to start a morally, emotionally, physically overwhelming act of cheating on his spouse. He says, "I didn't want to leave my family, but I wanted something exciting in my life." His username was Dirty Little Secret _man. Dirty Little Secret Man. He has since gone on to state, "This is an issue that is in our past. This was before I got onto YouTube. Yeah, because that makes it better. This was brought to my wife's attention. She has forgiven me for this mistake that I made in opening the account. I have sought forgiveness from God, and He has forgiven me. So I've been completely cleansed of this sin. I did make the account. This was brought to my wife's attention. She has forgiven me for this mistake that I made. I've sought forgiveness to God, and He's forgiven me. So I've been completely cleansed of this sin." There was a pastor who was outed in the leak, outed as a cheater. To clarify, he ends up self-exiting in his garage. To this day, nobody has been arrested, charged, or publicly identified as a member of the impact team that hacked Ashley Madison. That's crazy. They didn't ask for money or anything. No. They said, "Shut your stuff down." Fascinating. Back then, the vice president of the company would say, I would be asked, "Who's your biggest competitor to Ashley Madison?" And I would say, "The Bible," which seems to be very, very much on the nose. A contributor to Christianity Today reported that approximately 400 church leaders had been identified in the data and were expected to resign all across the country after this leak. One person in particular becomes the face of the Ashley Madison scandal. This one right here. As one would say, he was horny on the main. Joshua Duggar, the eldest firstborn son of the Duggar family empire. So this was leaked in 2015. Yes, and he was already famous. Oh yeah, they've been famous for a really long time. And 2015 is the year that everything Josh does comes to light. And then in 2021, it comes to light once more, and we don't even know if he's the worst of all the brothers. And that was already headline news. Josh Duggar in the Ashley Madison. Okay, because the Duggar family, they're reality TV show stars from TLC, and they're known to be this huge family of Christian fundamentalists who love God. This is the biggest scandal. And it's not necessarily because he's like the biggest celebrity in the world. I think it's more so the irony of him being on Ashley Madison. Joshua Duggar is part of this family. Christian fundamentalists, by the way, are a very large group of Christians who believe that the Bible and Scripture should be oftentimes taken literally. So notable fundamentalists state that God essentially breathed his exact thoughts into biblical writers, meaning that every word of Scripture is literally, scientifically, and historically true. So there's like a lot of different denominations of Christianity, and a lot of them have different beliefs and main goals. I would say fundamentalists are hardcore, and they're not that common, right? They're huge. It's a huge group of people. Yeah, I mean, depending on the severity, not the severity, the intensity of how fundamental they are. It gets a little bit smaller the more extreme you get, but it's a huge group of people. Huge group. They want to go back to the basics, the fundamentals, hence fundamentalist. You'll often hear them being referred to as fundies. They hate that. Yeah, most of them don't like that, but that's what people will call them. There's like snark pages on Reddit like fundies. There's a really good YouTube channel, Funny Fridays. She like dissects all the Christian fundamentalists. I love her channel. I think she runs it with her husband, boyfriend. I'm not sure, but so good. But this is just like one group of fundamentalists, or no? I don't think so. I don't know if she has a background of religious trauma. I'm not too well versed in her lore, but she's incredible if you want to deep dive into it, because there's so many different groups of fundamentalists and so many different fundamentalist leaders. She like dissects the heck out of each one of them. But there seems to be a lot of fundamentalists who do have differing beliefs. So you got a large group of hardcore fundamentalists who hate secular culture. A lot of Christians, like a lot of people with faith, will partake in certain aspects of secular culture. They'll still watch TV shows, even if the TV shows. I mean, there's differences. Wait, they don't watch TV. No, they don't even have. They're on TV. They're on TV. They're on TV, but they don't watch TV. I know. It's like Mark Zuckerberg's kids don't have Facebook. What the? No way. They don't watch their own show. No, I don't think so. Wow. Okay. So a lot of Christians, I mean, some of them, because I grew up Christian, not me like having religious trauma right now, but a lot of them will not allow you to even watch any sort of show that has anything that is against the Bible. So, witches, magic, Harry Potter's a big one, and it has nothing to do with JK Rowling being transphobic. In fact, that probably would have my old pastor would probably have loved that, but you get what I'm saying? Like, if there's something that is ungodly, they don't want you to watch it. Some people are more relaxed about it, and they're like, I watch Game of Thrones, and I watch nasty stuff on screen. I might look away, but I still watch it. It's just a movie. It's just a show. It's fine. But historically, fundamentalists typically do not engage with any secular culture, with many of them believing that rock music specifically is akin to the devil's soundtrack to life. Drums could potentially be demonic. Women aren't even really allowed to wear pants for a lot of fundamentalists, only dresses and skirts. So many fundamentalists, they see the Bible as a document that is perfect and so literal that questioning any part of it means questioning all of it. And once you start questioning all the Bible, are you even a person of faith? Joshua Duggar and the entire Duggar family are reality show stars that were like the face of fundamentalist Christians for almost a decade. That's why they had their own reality show. That and the fact that Michelle Duggar and Jim Bob, they've got like 20 kids. Like, I'm going to run you through all of them in a second. Joshua, at this point though, in 2015, when the Ashley Madison scandal happens, he's 27 years old. He's married to Anna Duggar. And at that point, they have 4 children. He was the executive director of FRC Action. So like, I need to give you all the information to know why this scandal was a big, huge, colossal failure for the Duggar family. FRC is the Family Research Council. Some call it a right-wing think tank. Others will call it a hate group. It has been declared a hate group, by the way, by the Southern Poverty Law Center. So this is not me just like throwing around the word hate group. Their goal is to produce policy research from a self-described biblical worldview. The core agenda revolves around three pillars: faith, family, freedom, which means anti-abortion legislation. They focus on trying to ban abortion at every level. They want to support what they call fetal personhood laws. They oppose most, if not all, LGBTQ+ rights. They literally fight same-sex marriage as if someone wants to marry them, which is what I would just call delusional self-flattery. They fight, they stay up and fight gender-affirming healthcare. They push for clauses that allow medical workers to refuse treatments for things like birth control, abortions, and they defend prayer being required in public schools. And they also actively oppose the Equality Act. Wait, what is his role again? You say director. He's the executive director of one of the FRC's arms, the political arm, where they lobby politicians. Like, that's a huge deal for a 27-year-old to get that position. I mean, he got it through nepotism. A lot of people said that he was largely incompetent. He would show up to meetings late, and he had no idea what he was talking about. But because he's famous, yeah, right? And he's a family man, and he's like the face of Christian fundamentalism, and now he is the face of the Ashley Madison leak. But also, like, just to give you a background on who Josh Duggar is. They oppose the Equality Act. That's like waking up one day and deciding you want to kill every single butterfly on the planet. Like, you just hate them. Obviously, it's not remotely the same thing, but it's kind of ridiculous to oppose the Equality Act. The Equality Act would prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and employment, housing, and public accommodations. They also think X-rated videos are the poison seeping through, running through the rivers, the Chattahoochee River of America. And I'm like, look around. We're not going to war in the Middle East because all of us are horned up. Get a grip. Okay, that's not a problem. FRC Action is part of the Family Research Council. Super powerful council. They are now a church. They just recently applied for nonprofit church status, and they got it. So, I mean, they're just rolling in money. They're terrifying. Yeah. And the council that he's on is the lobbying and political arm. So he moves to D.C. with Anna Duggar and his 4 kids. And even though a lot of Americans have not heard of FRC Action, they have been changing our lives. FRC Action has been instrumental in pushing state-level abortion bans. So if you live in a state with restricted access, FRC's decades of lobbying, judicial appointment advocacy, legislative strategy, and Josh Duggar probably played a huge role in that. Not that he's competent, but he was part of the organization. So the organization is still very much alive and thriving. Yeah. A lot of people would say that they have strong political sway of who even ends up in SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States. I mean, this is like a very powerful organization. Is he still in there? No, because he's in federal prison. We'll get there. What? They're also like an advisory board member FRC Action of Project 2025. They don't just like to mess with Americans. They paid $25,000 to congressional lobbyists to propose the anti-homosexuality bill in Uganda, which would propose the death penalty or life imprisonment for anyone who is gay or caught being gay. FRC would later state that they were actually opposing the bill. Nobody believes them. Josh Duggar, just 27 years old, is the executive director of the FRC Action, the lobbying POC. But here he is on Ashley Madison. Josh Duggar is a paying member. He didn't just have one account on Ashley Madison. He had 2 accounts on Ashley Madison, 2 separate accounts from February 2013 to May 2015. In total, he spent almost $1,000, $986.76 to be exact, for 2 separate accounts, including he paid for the $250 affair guarantee fee. His account names were ready for this. DC. I don't know if DC. I'm assuming DC meant Washington, D.C. Like, are you ready for this, DC? What else could it be? I don't know. I did have a moment of pondering, and it was not a good one. And then Josh _ the man. Josh the man. Also, he listed one of his billing addresses as his grandma's house in Arkansas. His list of turn-ons include naughty girl, girl next door, aggressive take-charge nature. He states on his profile that he's interested in finding a partner that is down to experiment with toys and share fantasies. It's also revealed in this entire storm scandal that Joshua Duggar also had an OkCupid profile. OkCupid? That's like a regular dating profile. How is he so? He's a famous person, right? Yeah, but he's putting his face out there. Yeah, that's like one screenshot away from. Exactly. And he would answer questions. Okay, so OkCupid does this thing where you can answer questions with someone that you've matched with, and the responses will come up together to see if you guys have the same worldviews. So he's trying to cheat on his wife, but also like answering these questions. Do you feel there's any circumstance in which a person is obligated to have sex with you? That's a question. Joshua Duggar writes, yes. Are you the type of person to tell a homeless person to get a job? Yes. The idea of gay and lesbian couples having children is not acceptable. Have you been faithful in all your past relationships? No. Rate your self-confidence very, very high. The rest of the OkCupid summary reads, just enjoying life here in DC. Lived here just over a year now. Lots of work, hitting the gym, finding good places to eat, and really needing to add some fun in the mix. What I'm doing with my life right now, I'm an executive in the city. I develop strategies, meet people, crunch numbers around big tables, and occasionally get out of ivory towers to sleep. Also, OkCupid has this very interesting thing where you take a personality test, and it tells you if you're less than average, or more average in certain traits. So this is not like an actual measurement to someone's capabilities, just how they perceive themselves. And it says that he's a lot more arrogant than the average, more romantic than the average, more sex-driven than the average, more political, more spiritual, more confident, more old-fashioned. However, less independent, less literary, less scientific than the average, which we know because he would say things like, marriage is essential to the American family, and every single child deserves a mother and a father. Well, all 7 of your kids are about to be without a father because you're going to be in federal prison. But I digress. And like any high-profile cheating man caught with his pants down, Josh puts out a formal statement. I have been the biggest hypocrite ever. While espousing faith and family values, I've secretly over the last several years been viewing pornography on the internet, and this has become a secret addiction. I have been unfaithful to my wife. I am ashamed of the double life that I have been living, and I am grieved for the hurt, pain, and disgrace my sin has caused my wife and family, and most of all Jesus, and all those who profess faith in him. I have brought hurt and reproach to my family, close friends, and the fans of our show with my actions the last few years while publicly stating I was fighting against immorality in our country. I was hiding my own personal failures. As I am learning the hard way, we have the freedom to choose our actions, but we do not get to choose our consequences. I humbly ask you for your forgiveness. Please pray for my precious wife Anna and our family during this time. Joshua Duggar, Jim, Bob, and Michelle, his parents, come out with this statement. When we learned of this late last night, our hearts were broken. As we continue to place our trust in God, we ask for your prayers for Josh, Anna, his wife, our grandchildren, and our entire family. Joshua Duggar's wife, Anna Duggar, whom a lot of people felt that she was going to leave him at this point. She states in an interview, I think it's such a betrayal for a spouse to go through what we're walking through. Not only was it a betrayal against me, but it was also a betrayal against those that call themselves Christian. Because here we are as a Christian couple getting married. Everyone was able to see us get married and to vow before God to be loyal to each other. And that loyalty was broken. And so for my heart, it was broken. But Anna will decide to stay with her husband, and eventually they will go on to have another child, seventh child. They name her Madison. But this will be the least of Joshua Duggar's problems because he's going to end up in jail for something much, much, much worse. When you think of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, TLC isn't typically the first thing that comes to mind. I mean, maybe it is. Okay, maybe I need to broaden my imagination, right? TLC is the reality show channel. It actually was never that in the beginning. It started off being the Learning Channel, and it was funded by the Department of Health and NASA to essentially create learning material for people who did not have as much access to schooling. So they would be these little educational videos, hour-long videos of teaching people how to read, would be distributed through a free NASA satellite to all the rural areas where there's not a lot of school setup. It was unsurprisingly not a profit machine. I mean, turns out we don't really enjoy learning, especially not with riveting titles like Learn to Read. If I don't know how to read, how am I going to read your title? The initiative itself was solid. I mean, there were regions in the U.S. with illiteracy rates that were 3 times the national average. Like, genuinely, I think that this was like one of the times the government was maybe in the right place. But because money runs the world, the parent company eventually goes bankrupt and it's no longer being funded, and the Discovery Network sweeps in to buy the Learning Channel, and it's now almost defunct, right? They originally stay on brand. Discovery Channel is like, we're just going to do like slightly more fun. We're going to release multi-part series on literature's most influential works. We're going to bring in scholars, historians, novelists to come in and comment on pieces like Frankenstein, The Origin of Species. Then Paleo Worlds, that was a hit. 50-episode series on dinosaurs. Paleo World Sundays at 9 Eastern and Pacific on TLC. Well, yeah. Ready, set, learn preschool programming. Ready, set, learn. We're on the move. And then because money still runs the world, the Discovery Channel starts getting creative. They're like, okay, well, maybe it doesn't have to be so informative every second of every time we're on air. Maybe we could just like ease into it. So they do. They ease into it. They don't go from ready, set, learn to extreme cougar wives, which features, people like 76-year-old Hattie. She sleeps with men as young as 18 years old. And she says things like, I'm confident. I'm sexy. I'm loving. And I've never had a headache. I always have sex on the first date. I'm confident. I'm sexy. I'm loving. I never have a headache because, yes, I do it on the first date. You go, Hattie. Okay. Then there's Stephanie. She's 65 dating a 28-year-old. Yeah. And that's what they switch. Like they just start making some. Yeah. So they had ready, set, learn, and then they start doing, you know what? We could learn about weddings. A wedding story. Watch real couples get married and learn how to wedding plan, and maybe they do these DIY projects to save money, and you can learn from the Learning Channel how to do that for your own wedding. Then that transitions into a baby story. Watch real couples give birth, and it's medical, and it's relationship, and you can learn the healthcare system, and we can capture their emotional first birth moments, trading spaces, neighbor swap homes. Okay, this one I don't know what we're learning from it, but like neighbors would swap homes and then redecorate a room in the neighbor's house with money and a designer's help. There's a viral moment where a designer covered up a homeowner's beloved fireplace with a wooden facade, even though the homeowner explicitly told the show not to, and she broke down on camera. They also have while you were out, a family member would decide that your house is disgusting, filthy, and ugly. They would lure you out of the house for 48 hours. A team of designers would come in with the Learning Channel and redo the room that they deemed to be filth. It seems like loosely educational in the sense of like we want to be voyeurs, but also it was mostly harmless and most importantly an advertiser's dream. Then TLC starts transitioning their slogans. It was live and learn life, unscripted, to finally everyone needs a little TLC. They dropped the Learning Channel. They're just TLC now. and they use it as more like tender loving care. No way. Then it starts to get weird. Honey, we're killing the kids. American version of an existing British show. Nutritionists will come in and they'll bring in a laptop and they're like, this is what your kid is going to look like at 40 years old if you don't stop feeding them tater tots for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Look at your kid. Isn't your kid so unconventionally unattractive? Doesn't that make you want to scream and die? Then they should eat a salad. And everyone's like, this is actually horrendous when you think about it. Like there is no aspect of this that could be even remotely healthy that we get a 4-week boot camp to transform the family's habits and follow-up episodes to show how they're going to look more conventionally attractive now with their new lifestyle. It's just like shaming. Okay, there's hoarding buried alive where they would go to hoarders' homes, give them interventions, declutter their homes. One notorious season, 2 members of the crew contracted the very often fatal hantavirus, where humans inhaled dust that's contaminated by saliva, urine, or droppings of infected rodents. The mortality rate is up to 38%. The hantavirus now lurking in an eye-opening new place. A Texas home featured on the hit reality series about hoarders, and now it's threatening an entire community. My Strange Addiction, you know that one. People who like to eat glass, mattresses. Participants have come forward to state that there was a lot that was depicted that was just straight up staged and set up, and also like there was no therapy. There was no nothing. Extreme couponing. This is like a whole national scandal. That show couponers would coupon stack to purchase hundreds of dollars of groceries for pennies. The show triggered a surge of extreme couponing, and stores blamed the show for coupon fraud. A huge wave of coupon fraud took over America after this show. I believe there were people investigated in regards to coupon fraud because of the show. Freaky eaters. Hey you only eat French fries. Welcome to the show. Sister wives, where a man has 4 wives, and I believe at one point they all lived in the same cul-de-sac, and he would go from house to house, and he'd be like, on Mondays I stay with Megan, and on Tuesdays I go to Terry's house. Outrageous kids' parties. Parents would just be spending a lot of money for over-the-top birthday parties for their children, and just like really oddball shows like Mall Cops, where they would follow the security staff at the Mall of America in Minnesota while they deal with shoplifters and people peeing in fitting rooms. Toddlers and tiaras followed child beauty pageants. That was one of the more controversial ones, as you would imagine, with the constant sexualization of little children. 90 Day Fiancé, very controversial, still up and running. My 600 Pounds Life. Multiple former cast members have filed lawsuits against the producers. Here comes Honey Boo Boo. That's a whole other situation I could do a whole episode on, because Honey Boo Boo's mom ends up staying with a child sex offender. Breaking Amish, where they allegedly filmed former Amish people leaving their communities in real time. Social media investigations stated that that was all fake, that these cast members had actually left their communities years earlier. So the show was not that accurate, but more staged. My 5 Wives. Another polygamous. Seeking sister wives. Another polygamous where now they're like, my husband wants another wife. Let's go find the perfect wife. They had a special called My Husband's Not Gay, which focused on 4 Mormon or LDS church members who stated that they had SSA, same-sex attraction, and they chose to live in heterosexual marriages because that's in line with their religious beliefs. The men framed their attractions as something they chose not to act on, emphasizing religious conviction and marriage as the priority, which naturally drew significant backlash and criticism. Pregnant Behind Bars, documenting pregnant women in jail and prisons, which, the anger there was that TLC just did not do enough to advocate for prison reform. My teen is pregnant, and so am I, where mom and teenage daughter in a family would be pregnant at the same time. Unexpected, another teen pregnancy show. Hot and Heavy, where they would document mixed-weight couples, where plus-size women are in relationships with thin male partners. But the name of the show, Hot and Heavy, feels like the men are hot and the women are heavy. And there's almost always this lingering question in every episode of like, why is he even with her when she's fat? Mill Manor, I believe this is the one, where you had the older woman with the younger men. But so they had older women come into the villa where they thought that they were just going to meet a bunch of young hunks. But turns out all the young men that they're going to date are like their sons. So they're not going to date their own son, but like the other Amiel, that's her son. And they had these weird segments where the mothers would grope the young men's torsos to identify their own son. But there was one show that was one of the biggest rating successes for TLC. Like really unlike any other, and that is 19 Kids and Counting, the show about the Duggars. This show repeatedly, consistently hit new highs on TLC. I mean, because I never heard of them, right? But you would say most Americans heard about them in this show. Yeah. I mean, you would know this. Leave in the comments. I knew of the Duggars. I never watched the show. I never kept up with the Duggars. I think maybe because I had a little bit of religious trauma. I don't watch shows like this. But yeah, I know a lot of people do. A lot of people are like, you don't know the Duggars. You don't know every person of the Duggars. I see. But the show is long finished, right? The show ended in 2015 because of what I'm about to talk about. And it's not the Ashley Madison scandal that ends the show. Something worse ends the show, really. So this whole show is about Jim Bob. Jim Bob. Okay. His real name is Jim Bob. People call him Jim Boob. People call him Rim Job. People call him Boob. You decide what you want to call him. So Jim Bob Duggar is his full name. Yes. Do people just call him Jim? Jim Bob. They call him Jim Bob. Jim Bob. Okay. Yeah. Then you have Michelle Duggar, and they are fundamentalist Christians, and they have 19 kids and counting. They had specials before. They're full-blown multi-season show. And it would be called things like 14 Children and Pregnant Again, Raising 16 Children, On the Road with 16 Children. Season 1 of the TLC reality show wasn't even 19 kids and counting. It was 17 kids and counting, and you can put together what happened there. Now, aside from the fact that Michelle Duggar herself birthed 19 kids and is by the internet's opinion freakishly fertile, they all live in one house. They've got to make 19 breakfasts, 19 dinners. There's the infamous tater tot casserole. I mean, it's weird. The whole show, the appeal. Live in one house. Yeah, with a wife, husband, everybody. No. So the minute that someone gets married, they usually move out. But there was a point in time where most of them were under the same roof. I see. Yeah. So when the show was going on, they were like younger, so they're still kids. And okay. So I think it was like midway through the show that he's the first one to get married. And this was heavily documented. Joshua Duggar gets married. Heavily documented. Anna Duggar is a big part of the show. The whole appeal of this show is it's like watching a woman wearing an ankle-length denim skirt, looking like Michelle Duggar, looks like she just walked out a magazine from 100 years ago, and she runs her house and dinner time like a corporation. All the kids are employees. That fascination causes the show to become TLC's highest-rated program ever when it's released. The show is a ratings addiction. People are so confused and intrigued by this entire big family that seemed normal. And I'm telling you in the perspective of the reality show appeal, not the actual family, because it would be kind of offensive to say that they're wholesome when they have all vocally outside of the TV show stated, well, not all, but a lot of them have been very vocal against just like human rights. A lot of them are anti-abortion, anti-homosexuality. That's what they like to say, right? Over 130,000 people have signed a petition at Change. Or calling for the cancellation of the popular TLC reality show 19 Kids and Counting. Critics say the family's recent anti-LGBT statements have gone just too far. 19 Kids and Counting star Joshua Duggar is in the hot seat after comparing abortion to the Holocaust. They're exactly what you expect from like a hardcore Christian fundamentalist family. But I think when the TLC show originally aired, a lot of America had a fascination with them because at least on the show itself, they appeared very wholesome. They don't talk about these issues, right? No, they always seem like, well, it's always kind of like the nice Southern family of, well, if you don't believe in God, you're going to burn in the pits of hell. But like that vibe. Does Jim Bob have a job or? Yeah. So Jim Bob was like a car dealership dude, and then later they get into trying to flip houses and real estate. But his whole job becomes the reality show. Okay, he is a politician at one point. Not a good one, but he was. Do they get paid for the TLC? Yes. They made millions and millions of dollars from this show, all taken by Jim Boob and Michelle Duggar. There were lots of complaints, particularly from Jill Duggar later, who writes a full book, and her husband Derek, who say like everything they were forced to be documented. She alleges that Jim Bob would have her sign contracts without reading them because she just trusts her dad, and it would be like, oh, from now on you're forced to come to every TLC appearance, and they would get nothing out of it. You felt that your father, quote, tricked you into signing a contract the night before your wedding. MHM. The revenue you generated, one could argue, was considerably more than that. Yes, but they're Christian fundamentalists, right? So all the children would dress in a certain way. The girls were all wearing dresses, long dresses. They never wore pants or shorts. They all had curly hair. All the girls in the family, the daughters, they had softer voices. Michelle Duggar is known for talking like this with like a slight Southern accent, but very soft. Nothing. It's almost like she's always whispering, and she can barely you just always hear this very soft demeanor. As a mother, you look forward to the milestones in your children's lives. The boys, they're just there. The boys are just there, but they're scared to look at any girl. The family believes that the female body is a tripwire for sin. It's like a code red. They would have a code where if one of the girls they're out and about, one of the girls in the family would yell Nike. All the boys in the family would crane their necks down looking at the floor because one of the older girls would later write in a book that it's because like someone who was wearing, I don't know, maybe something that showed their shoulders or a butt cheek was out and about. So all the guys had to look down. Nike, though. Yeah. So they would scream Nike. Why Nike? I don't know. Yeah. And they all homeschooled their children. And side note, like I said, all the Duggar kids are named with J names. So you got Josh, Jana, John, David, Jill, Jessa, Ginger, Joseph, Josiah, Joanna, Jed, Jedediah, Jeremiah, Jason, James, Justin, Jackson, Johanna, Jennifer, Jordan, Josie. Wow. Michelle Duggar stayed busy. She was having a baby like every 18 months. So I guess some of them were twins too, right? Yes. There's 2 sets of twins. And you can kind of see how all of this makes for really good reality TV. Large group of people. There's a large group of people who watch this show that could relate to the Duggars. So probably not the part where they need a whole school bus to transport the family to the grocery store, but a lot of people grew up in super conservative, strict religious families, and either they're still in it or they've left it, and they're watching the show with perhaps morbid fascination of what their lives could have been. Then there are people who aren't raised religiously and think that the whole show is very interesting because it's so different from their own way of life, but ultimately it still feels kind of wholesome. Like the biggest plot point of every episode is like we're having a guest over now girls run 20 loads of laundry and ooh, how many cans of pickles are we getting at the grocery store? And now we got to teach one of the kids how to drive. It's like very slice of life-y. And as long as TLC edits out all the parts that they're probably being homophobic, transphobic, anti-woman, anti-diversity, you get it, then it's going to stay wholesome. Now, again, like I said, when I talk about their wholesome family image, it's not because I condone any of some of their bigoted beliefs, and many of them still hold those beliefs. I'm giving you a context on how they became famous, and without further research, why people might watch their reality show and perceive them to be wholesome. They were literally marketed that way. Christian family trying to navigate the world. It'd be like Duggars go to New York City for the first time. And in this wholesome image, let's break down the family members. You got Jim Bob, who comes off originally as the aw shucks guy, like the aw shucks patriarch. He runs the family. He originally had a Southern dad appeal. No more, but he did. He'll be asked about drugs, and he could just say, "I've never taken drugs." But he's like the aw shucks. There's a few times I've been sick and I've taken some Tylenol or aspirin, but I've never taken marijuana. Well, nobody was asking you about the Pepsi to cocaine pipeline. Like, that's a really. You didn't have to say that, right? Then you have Michelle Duggar, soft-spoken, makes it hard to believe that she's birthed 18 kids because after like maybe 2, you start yelling a little bit more because life is hard, right? But she's not. She portrays herself as someone who never loses her cool, even though she has 19 more kids than most people. But she's also like supermom by the grace of God. She says she wasn't always like that before she found God. You know, she didn't grow up religious like Jim Boob. I hadn't really attended church that much growing up, and so I knew nothing. I didn't know what an invitation was. I didn't know what an altar call. I knew nothing. She actually used to do this crazy thing, sinful, where she would mow her lawn in a bikini as a teenager, and she felt it was sinful to lead all the married men astray in the neighborhood, which is not only really confident. What? But like a very odd story to share. Yeah, they get married on Michelle's 18th birthday. Story goes, Jim Bob walks into a yogurt shop and sees Michelle and falls in love. She converts to IBLP, his religion, and then Disney becomes synonymous with the devil. Apparently, the Duggars would have a bonfire where they would burn anything that was worldly and not godly. So Mickey Mouse is getting cremated in the name of God. Okay. And again, I just want to make it abundantly clear. I think religion is one of the more beautiful aspects to human life in existence. Though I'm not religious, and that probably is like due to my own personal upbringing, but I think that most people who are in some sort of faith-based life, a lot of them are some of the sweetest people, and they support gay rights, women's rights, they support all of that, and they're just living life, going to temple, church, synagogue. But he's weird. Okay, so this is not me poking fun at religion. This is me poking fun at Jim Boob. He says they also are not allowed to dance. Jim Bob says, we try not to shake body parts to draw attention to our bodies. So the two of them, they go on to have their very first child, Josh Duggar. My name is Joshua Duggar. They called him the little governor. Josh. Okay, so Jim Bob eventually gets into politics. Josh Duggar would follow his dad to the Capitol in Arkansas and meet with all these politicians. He would even later join the Family Research Council. Like I said, the highly political right-wing group. His on-air persona at the time was role model, eldest golden boy, responsible, charismatic, into politics. This is the prototype for what every Duggar kid should strive to be. He's the first to get married, but even then, his relationship with Anna Duggar becomes like a huge storyline for the show. The show leans so heavily into Josh Duggar being Jim Boob 2.0. He's going to be a great family man. He also ironically sang the loyalty song to Anna during the ceremony during their wedding. Yeah. There's this one scene in the show, though. Josh doesn't want to move. So they're all sitting at the dining table, and Josh doesn't want to move. He's holding one of their babies, and Anna is pregnant with another baby, and she's like trying to get behind him, and he's like, oh. He like makes a half-hearted attempt to move his chair. He's like just doing this. And then Anna, she decides, oh, don't mind me. It's okay. You don't have to move, my amazing husband. Let me just get on all fours while I'm pregnant and crawl under the table to get to my seat. Then you have, what? Wait. Yeah. Like she's doing it as if this is a normal thing to do. Yeah. Like this happens a lot. But I think the way that it's edited with lighthearted music, I think in hindsight, this show was really effective at normalizing horrendous relationships. Then there's Jana Duggar. My name is Jana Duggar. A lot of people have sympathy for Jana because she's the firstborn daughter, which naturally makes it seem like she was tasked unfairly with basically raising all of her siblings. She actually gets married later. She gets married in her 30s, which nothing is wrong with that. But netizens feel like she was forced to watch her siblings get married, have children of their own, while she was forced to stay in the family home, homeschooling all the younger kids, raising all their siblings. She's known to be basically good at everything. Musical instruments, gardening. The word Cinderella comes out a lot when people talk about her, and not necessarily in like a mean-spirited way. A lot of people who have strong parasocial connections to the Duggars wanted to save her, in a sense. She does get married and gets cited for misdemeanor child endangerment. We're going to get into that later, but yeah, later. That's later. Then you have her twin brother, John David Duggar. My name is John Duggar. On the show, he's kind of the older, reserved guy that's in the background. He's very much hated by the internet these days, but on the show, he was just a quiet, reserved, strong persona. Very masculine. Emphasis on persona. He has a pilot license. He almost killed his entire family because he let the aircraft run out of fuel and they crash-landed in a field. What do you mean? Like they were on the show. He was flying. This was not on the show. Yeah. But he was flying the plane and they crash-landed. And he also was like stealing supplies from missionary efforts, is the allegation on the internet. Not my allegation. Yeah, people hate him. People hate him. And he has one of the more viral moments on 19 Kids and Counting, because at his wedding with his wife, this is a lot of the Duggars, their first kiss is their wedding day, wedding ceremony kiss, like, which is great for ratings, right? But he does this thing where he doesn't just like kiss his wife. He like makes a whole drawn out production of it where he kisses her hands, then her cheeks, and then her forehead and her lips, and it's very uncomfortable to watch. Then you have Jill Duggar. My name is Jill Duggar. She's been very outspoken about her family since the show. She will become pivotal later. But while on the show, they kind of molded her to be the persona of the eager to please daughter who wanted to be noticed. She seemed deeply enthusiastic about anything that the family valued. On her wedding day, Jim Bob, her dad, tells her new husband, Derek, that he has permission to kiss the bride. Derek, you may kiss the bride. Jessa, my name is Jessa Duggar. Growing up, she was seen as the outspoken, sharp-tongued Duggar by Duggar standards. She was the first daughter to enter a courtship on television. And I believe their very first kiss was not at the altar, but afterwards. So they wanted a very private moment for their kiss. Now, prior to this, during the courting, Jim Bob gave them permission for a 30-second hug. So there's that. There's also a weird viral moment where Jim Bob and Michelle go on a date with Jessa and Ben during their courting process. And Jim Bob and Michelle, I don't know if the Holy Spirit compelled them to do this, but they're mini golfing and they're like, here's what all the fun you can have when you get married. And they're just like dry humping on the mini golf course. They're like Jim Bob and Michelle try humping. They're both like, when you, but it was not. When you say courting. Oh, we're going to get into courting. So courting is their version of dating. Oh, got it. Okay. Then you have Ginger. My name is Ginger Duggar. Now, Ginger, who has been very vocal, she also has 2 books since the reality show ended. There was a whole Free Ginger movement online during the show because she would roll her eyes. She would mention that she wanted to live in a big city one day. She wouldn't mind it. She wouldn't mind living in New York City one day. And so a lot of people online were like, we got to save Ginger. She's the one that we can save. We can get her out of the grip of the fundamentalist. Ginger has since written her book Free Indeed. But she says in her book, as TLC ordered more seasons, I became known as the girl with a million expressions, apparently because of my exaggerated faces. People even called me the Rebel Duggar, which was funny considering I wanted nothing more than to please my parents. It was all because of one offhand comment I made on camera about how I love the city and enjoy visiting it. That innocent statement turned into entire Reddit threads about how I wanted to move away from my family and lead an exciting life in the city. Joseph Duggar. My name is Joseph Duggar. At the time, he is known as the quiet, nice one, athletic. A lot of people loved him. They thought that he was soft. He has this baby face. More on him later. Josiah. My name is Josiah Duggar, class clown, family prankster. He's notably also a rebel by Duggar standards. So much so that he was sent to this camp that fundamentalists go to where, which is just like really harsh military-esque training, really, and people said that you could see the light leave his eyes after that. He's generally well-liked by the internet. You have Joanna. Her name is Joanna Duggar. She's known as the tomboy. I don't know if that word is offensive to some people, but that's what a lot of people would call her on pages, but the show focused on her gravitating more towards activities rather than domestic chores like her sisters. Then you have Jeremiah and Jedediah. They're the Duggar twins. My name is Jedediah Duggar. My name is Jeremiah Duggar. Fans dubbed them the Lost Boys because they barely ever got individual screen time. They just kind of blend into the episodes. And this is again when they're young, because Jedediah later is going to get himself into some trouble because he's going to pat his wife on the head when she gives labor, and he's going to weight shame his wife during pregnancy, and then he's going to run for public office. Jason the Builder. My name is Jason Duggar. Another one that just kind of gets lost. He just like builds things. Very into construction work, flipping houses. James Duggar, known to be resourceful. So in this pink square, I actually have a lot of the single Duggar children, and then obviously they're underage, but like single isn't, it's actually very important in the Duggar universe of who's married, who has children, who's courted, and who is, quote, eligible for courting. It's like a thing. James Duggar, resourceful helper. Justin Duggar, people say he was like the sweet, thoughtful one. And this is during the show. Jackson, the jokester, his parents would say that he's like the best jokester, best storyteller ever. And a lot of the younger Duggars, there's not much. I would say like their biggest controversies that they face are still being part of very right-wing religious groups. Like Jackson's thing was he is very involved, I believe, in Turning Point USA, where he's at like a lot of their conferences. So like the younger Duggars, there's not as much compared to the older Duggars. There's not as much history. There's not as much of a digital footprint and all of these things that's going on. And with two of the older Duggars' criminal histories. So with that, Jackson's classic move, though, would be to bring in snakes and frogs to tease his siblings. Then you have Johanna. Johanna is after 6 boys. They finally have another daughter. And she's described as outgoing and always tidying up after her siblings, which I don't know if like anyone should be known for that. Then you have Jennifer, the younger ones. Like I said, we don't really know much about, but huge animal lover. Jordan Grace. People call her the overlooked baby because right after, and you can kind of see it happen like right after Josie is born quickly after, and Josie is nicknamed the miracle baby. She spent 6 months in the NICU. And actually one of the most disturbing scenes in the entire series is the producers film her having a seizure on camera. Josie Jenna is watching over her sobbing, praying for her, freaking out. The directors finally step in to help. They rush her to the hospital. Meanwhile, Jim, Bob, and Michelle are away and do not rush home. So there's something called the quiverful movement in fundamentalist Christians, which the family has denied being part of it, though it seems like they follow the principles to the T. These are essentially people who believe that children are tools for God. They invoke God's word. And that's really the only reason to keep having children beyond conventional desire. Therefore, if you have a ton of children, you're blessed by God, and you should keep having these kids because that's what God wants. So for them, family planning is frowned upon. Any sort of contraception is frowned upon because it's God's will. Like if it happens, it's God's will. And if you follow that logic, you can see how forms of birth control can start becoming demonized. There have been lots of controversial statements made by people in the quiverful movement who liken birth control to murdering children. Even natural family planning, just like following your ovulation cycle, is frowned upon by hardcore quivers. AKA, don't even plan when you're least likely to get pregnant. Like, just do it and see what happens. A woman's body is meant to be a living sacrifice. Yeah, to having kids. And that's why a lot of people will track the Duggar kids. So they want to track how many kids each Duggar child has because that gives them an indication of how deep in the fundamentalist religion that they still are, because not all of them have spoken out. Does that make sense? Spoken out about, like just Duggar the whole scandal and what they believe in. So they can tell by how many kids is how much they're still following this belief. Yeah, I see. If you're a man who had a vasectomy, you should go and reverse it because you can't cut off children. You owe it to God. In the quiverful movement, there are people called reversal babies where husbands would reverse their vasectomies, then go on to have a child, and they were known as reversal babies in the communities. Is that good or bad? Like they would all hang out with themselves apparently, and they liked it. So people really want it. I was so deep in Reddit and they would I think they would lie that their dad had a vasectomy, undid it, and then they were born to join reversal baby cliques in churches. That's weird. It's become a religious, societal, right way to live life, even political type of movement, the quiverful movement with people who leave these communities writing. Quiverful movement people, they think that they have the numbers. They're going to be able to control the fate of the government for cultural and technological ends. A lot of women that were part of the quiverful movement have stated that they aren't afraid of dying during childbirth because a lot of them are warned against additional pregnancies. Like if you've had multiple babies, the doctors will be like, this is not safe. But one states, I really believe that I wouldn't die unless God willed that I die, and if he did, then I would accept that. It's a pretty controversial movement considering it leads families to have a lot of children that they cannot feasibly care for emotionally, physically, financially. A lot of people in the quiver movement are living in poverty. There's food scarcity. The children are growing up hungry and anxious. But a lot of them argue if God wants you to have a certain number of kids, he will find a way for you to provide for them. And Jim, Bob, and Michelle, whether they like it or not, they become the face of the quiverful movement. And it's really not fair because they're multimillionaires making tons of money off of this reality show, this TLC reality show, and there's no more food scarcity in the house anymore. Meanwhile, what they're advocating is leading to food scarcity amongst children in the United States because their parents are falling into the quiverful movement. But the reality show doesn't focus on that. They focus on the fact that all the sons they would run marathons in long pants because shorts are bad. Shorts are banned. They would risk a heat stroke. That's really. Do they swim? Yeah. So the girls, when they go to the beach, they wear long skirts, which I think is a pretty huge safety concern. Long skirt, and the boys wear long pants. Oh, it actually becomes. Do they wear shirts? Yes. It actually becomes a huge scandal when one of the elder daughters wears pants. It becomes a huge thing. Really? Which one? They all started wearing pants. Jill, Jessa, and Ginger. Not in the show, but later on. Yeah. So what if they see other people shirtless on the beach? They probably scream Nike. Yeah. And they had the infamous tater tot casserole. The Duggar family tater tot casserole. You cannot separate the two. They didn't invent the tater tot casserole, but they probably ate it every week. It's cheap. It's easy to make. It's filling. You get frozen tater tots, and then you add cream of mushroom soup, sour cream. All this. You make a casserole. People thought that the Duggars loved it so much to the point that I believe they refused to eat it for 3 years because everywhere they went to visit anybody, they would be served tater tot casseroles. Wait, I'm sorry. Why? What? Why is tater tot casserole a scandal? It's not a scandal. It just becomes a huge part of their lore. Oh yeah. They make tater tot casserole and they love it. And then now everyone thinks they love it. So everywhere they go, they're served a tater tot casserole. And then the kids are like, I hate tater tot casseroles now. No, they finally came out to say, we actually hate that. Yeah. One of them said like we couldn't eat it for 3 years because all we did eat was tater tot casserole because everyone thought we loved it. Yeah. Then there's a part in Jill Duggar's book where she says that her family would role-play different scenarios on what to do to stay as far away from sin as possible to hold the devil with a 10-foot pole, right? They would practice. What if their friends asked them to read a book? Now, what if someone comes up to you and says, hey, Joseph, why don't you read this book right here? It's got a witch in it. Joseph would deliver his line right on cue. I'm a Christian. I won't be able to do that. Joseph will later be arrested. So there's that. All the kids are homeschooled. They don't even have a weather radio in their house. So if there's a tornado coming their way, because they live in Arkansas, their cousins would have to call them and scream at them, shelter in place. Shelter in place. I repeat, shelter in place. There's a tornado warning. They had, ironically, they also had an entire camera crew following them around that would be aired to the very, very secular network of TLC, but all in the name of spreading the word of God. I guess, look, I don't know, but the most controversial things to come out of the show initially in the very beginning were the buddy systems. There is no way for Jim, Bob, and Michelle to raise 19 children. So they just thought, why don't we have the children raise the children? Michelle says, Mom cannot be everywhere at once, and so my older children help to take care of my younger children. When a baby is born, it's my buddy until it's weaned, and then from there it goes to the other buddy, whose ever turn it is to get a buddy. Guess who's all the buddies? All the girls. Oh, so the guys didn't have buddies? No, not really. I mean, like, they compare all the girls' tasks. So all of them have to pull their weight in the house. And all the girls, they're doing like 10 loads of laundry. They're cleaning all the rooms. They're doing this. And the guys are like, well, today on my list of to-dos, I have to feed the dog. Process goes like this. Every Duggar has at least one buddy. If you're too old and don't need help from a buddy, that means you're ready to take on a younger buddy. A big buddy helps you get dressed, brush your teeth, comb your hair, get your breakfast, do your homework, learn to play violin, piano, and so. They're there to pick you up when you fall and keep track of you when you're out and about. No one is exempt from the buddy brigade. Yeah, so I mean the boys did have buddies, but like they're not really doing much. Jim Bob's buddy is Michelle because he still needs to be catered to and taken care of like an infantile toddler. And Michelle reserves the privilege of being each of the children's very first buddy. Basically 11-year-old little girls becoming parents while the boys are off being boys. But they also have the courting system. Like a lot of fundamentalist Christians, the Duggar family has a tendency to get married very early, with the exception of 2 siblings. Most of the others get married 18, 19, maybe early 20s. And you could say it has to do with their dating system, courting system, the system where God is the ultimate chaperone. So the rules are this. No dating, no kissing, no indulging, no frontals. If you want to spend time together, chaperones must be there. Spend time with somebody else. You mean like a new person? If you want to spend time with someone that you're going to marry, even if you're on the phone with them, another sibling has to chaperone and make sure you're not doing anything ungodly. And maybe America is the chaperone because we're just watching this all play out on the reality TV show. A lot of it comes from this decades-old book that got a lot of evangelical Christians in a knot where the author states dating is training for divorce. So courtship should be a godly thing. A young Christian man should decide that he is financially, spiritually, and emotionally ready for marriage, and he's going to approach the father of a potential bride asking permission to be in a supervised relationship with the explicit intent to marry. So a few questions, right? How do they meet people? How do they know whose? They just walk by someone on the street and decide that's the person or no. So they all go to similar churches. A lot of them got courted by people they either went to the same church with, or they would have these like youth seminars all around the nation where people with same ideological beliefs would gather for like summer camp. VS. Ooh, that used to be the bane of my existence. VS? Yeah. Vacation Bible study. They would like starve us. It was a thing. You couldn't get your food until you memorized a ton of Bible verses. And I was like a chubby little hungry kid. And I would come back just so hungry. Yeah, it was actually like, I don't even know how that's ethical, but okay. Soper. You see a girl that you kind of like, and you go straight to the decision saying, yeah, I'm going to marry her. Yeah, there is. Like a trial. And do I have to marry this person? Like, yeah, most likely. Really? Yeah. Because I guess if a girl was courted by multiple men, she's just, right? Yeah. And girls get no say in a lot of this. So, I mean, it really depends on the family. There are certain families on Reddit who are saying like, no, I don't really believe in this courting system. But there are also a lot of families deep in this religion where they say, if God wants a man to marry you, the man will want to marry you. And that's God's will. The author that wrote this book that some people would accredit to the beginning of this courting system would later pull his own book from publications, stating that he gave millions of people the wrong advice and that he's not even a Christian anymore. So like, what the hell? A lot of people built courting systems based off this original book, and now he's just taking it all back. He's like, oops. But the Duggars, they had their own little spin on it. Apparently, Jim Bob, who a lot of people, like I said, call Rim Job, would have potential suitors for his daughters fill out 45-page applications, questionnaires, which you know what is not the craziest thing in the world. I feel like that's something I would do if I had a daughter in this world. However, the questions aren't even good. The questions are not even good. There's an alleged leak version of it online where some of the questions, okay, some of them are completely valid, like when someone gets married, do you have any financial debt? If so, explain the extent and circumstances. You should probably know your partner's credit score before you get married. Okay, yes, that's fine. But other questions are just weird. Would you be willing to die for Christ? If you're not dying daily, how can you be so sure you would die for Christ? Then when did the fruit of the Spirit start appearing in your life? I don't even know what that means, sir. Fruit of the Spirit. What was your prior experience with dating and romance? Have you ever kissed or been physically intimate in a way with a girl or a woman? If so, explain the circumstances. What is your stance on terminating a pregnancy? What about in the case of? What are your views on child training, including corporal punishment? When at home or in the car, who does the temperature have to be set to please? You or the others in the car? How about in regards to your mom or sister? So if you're in the car with your mom and sister and your partner? Yeah. Who do we set the temperature catering to? Yeah. What's the right answer according to Jim Bob? The man. Duh. What about like the man and Jim Bob in the car? Jim Bob? I see. Yeah. What a weird question. No. Like, can you imagine telling my dad that in the car you're the one that sets the temperature? My dad would bonk you over the head. That's actually insane. Yeah. How will you approach your wife or daughters if they are immodest? What are your views on public swimming? One of the suitors, one of the courters states, I got sent a 50-page questionnaire. I sent it back at 105 pages. I got sent a 50-page questionnaire. I sent it back at 105 pages. What does that mean? Like, he came back with a lot of answers. Yeah. Michelle Duggar also has words of advice for her daughters according to their book, A Love That Multiplies. She says, for instance, I've told my girls that romance novels are to women what pornography is to men. They stir up emotions with unreal fantasies. In contrast, God's word tells us to think on things that are honest, pure, lovely, and of a good report, which is crazy. She doesn't like romance novels. Yeah. What's wrong with romance novels? She's saying it's unrealistic standards. And like, I think we know that. I'm not expecting that. Honey, you're going to be the leader of the Russian mafia and a billionaire that's going to storm in and kill people who even dare look at me because you're so possessive. But like, I don't know why she is like, it's so bizarre. Sounds like she read something to know like HM. Like, I don't think romance novels sound anything like what you just said, but to her, she probably read, right? Exactly. And her romance novel is probably like the diet romance. Hey, you never know, because some of these guys, they say one thing and do the other things. You never know. Michelle, I want to know. I want to know your read on Goodreads. Okay. And from, again, a reality TV standpoint, we love Love Island. We love Love is Blind. We also apparently love courting in the 19 Kids and Counting, because this whole dating process is part of the reason that the show is so successful. I think it's the dating. It's the fast-pacedness of courting. It also feels higher stakes because usually the courting phase lasts a very short amount of time, a few months. And then they get married at the altar and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to have my first kiss. I'm going to have a kid. And the cameras are everywhere. We're the unpaid chaperones. Wait, so all of these people, we see them start courting on the show and they get married in a couple months and there's no divorces so far. Nope. Really? Even when there are crimes committed against children, there are no divorces. Like, genuinely the rhetoric in their beliefs. And I'm not saying they're as in the children, but maybe perhaps because the lack of divorce is kind of astonishing in certain circumstances, but I think their view of divorce is genuinely, you might as well sever your relationship with Christ. But the whole point of this is just to get you familiar with Joshua, the firstborn Duggar child, and to understand him and why he gets locked up in federal prison for over a decade for crimes against children. So in order to understand that, we also have to know, like I said, we got to know 19 Kids and Counting, the reality show, which I just told you about, but we also have to talk about Jim Bob's political run. This is a high bar to call a political career. It's just disastrous. Everyone holding office, their career has been disastrous. Jim Bob's career is a car crashed straight into the Capitol, but he hasn't even made it in the car. The car is driving itself, and he's just like chasing after it, trying to get into the car crash. His political career is a mess. He does get elected as a House representative in the Arkansas House of Representatives, and then wins re-election. But instead of seeking a third term, he's like, I got to run for the Senate in Arkansas because God told me to, and God wants me on vacation, but the world works in mysterious ways. Here we are, right? But he first runs for Senate, and the only issue he seems to care for is abortion. And apparently he hates Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton being elected horrified him into action. So I don't know, maybe he's got a good chance, right? So the person that he's running up against is another Republican. He's actually gotten a lot of hot water. This is why I think he has a good chance. So this Republican that was in the Senate, he's all God is good all the time. All the time. God is good. And then he goes and divorces his wife of 39 years and then marries a former employee, and his voter base is like, hello. What the hell was that? This guy is a former Southern Baptist minister turned politician, turned divorce, turned second marriage with a former staffer who's much younger than you. I mean, what? So Jim Bob is going up against that. Most people could win up against that. He just doesn't know anything about politics. During debates, when he's asked to address key issues, he's like, come on, kids. And he'll bring 13 of his kids on stage, and they'll sing a song, and everyone is like, we asked you a question. And he's like, shut up. I'm a family man. Needless to say, he gets wrecked. He loses, but he runs again after and then fails. And then he just ends up helping other Republicans like Mike Huckabee, Rick Santorum, stating that he loves Rick because Rick wants less government intervention in our lives, except when they want to control women's bodies. Okay, interestingly enough, Jim Bob very vocal about wanting to make incest capital crimes. Basically, if you commit incest, you should be killed by the government. Keep this in mind for later. But he also tries to outlaw anyone from under 21 becoming a midnight dancer. And it's like a mess of a political career. And if you think that Jim Bob has very anti-everything values in politics in Arkansas, there are two Jims in politics in Arkansas with these beliefs. You've got Jim Bob and his very close best friend Jim Holt. So Jim Holt is going to be important. Okay, Jim Holt has a lot of similar beliefs to Jim Bob. He and his wife Bobby have 11 kids. And Jim Holt has won a seat in the Arkansas House of Representatives where he co-sponsors a bill that would require public schools to state that evolution is an unproven theory. He's also homophobic. He said that, quote, "If my own mother voted against the federal marriage amendment, I'd be campaigning against her." Every person in America has come together on this issue of same-sex marriage. We have the issue that is we must defend our traditional values. He also said for Roe v. Wade, it is a terrible decision and should be overturned. If we truly care for the women of our great country, we must end this cruel and gruesome procedure. Depressing, yes. But Bobby Holt, the wife of Jim Holt, says that she's known the Duggars for decades. They're all in politics, and they all go to the same church. They do Bible studies and ski trips together, and the Duggar kids apparently call her Annie Bobby Holt. It would, only make sense, right, that their children would eventually court each other. So Joshua Duggar was originally not, by most people's beliefs, going to marry Anna Duggar. The little governor, that's what they called Joshua Duggar, asks Jim Holt for his eldest daughter, Kay Holt's hand in marriage. They start the courting process. It's kind of expected, common knowledge that secretly. This was like before. And it was common knowledge that this was going to happen in the community and they were just going to get married. Like that was it. No one was like even looking at Joshua as someone who was going to be courting anybody else because that's how close they were. They're like two peas in a pod. And then, no, because I have to find some happiness somewhere sometimes because this was so depressing. Okay, but the Holts find out something really, really bad about Joshua. Something that requires Josh to be sent away for 4 months, away from his family, his parents, his siblings, and the Holts. They want Joshua to never come around their daughter ever again. But nobody knows why. Then how do we know this? It comes out all later. But around that time, the courting just ends abruptly. It's not happening. They're not doing it. And that's where Jim Bob and Jim Holt, they suddenly become icy. Everyone's like, okay, something happened. And then Josh gets sent away for months. Sent away where? To this other Christian family who run a home remodeling business, and he's got home remodel work. Okay, and then Joshua comes back. They're on a TV show, and he starts courting a girl named Anna Keller. She's number 5 of 8 children in the also deeply religious Keller family. The Keller family are very different from the Duggars. They're financially not well off. And a lot of internet users and people who run the same fundamentalist circles say that Anna Keller's dad is all about marrying up in the religious ladder. They meet at a homeschooling conference, and Josh is like, that's the one. He asked the Kellers if he can court Anna Keller. Their courting, relationship, eventual wedding, and marriage are all documented on the TV reality show. Even the wedding planning Josh is all like men approach planning a wedding. I think I'm more of the kind, I look at it more of a systematic process. I say, so, here's the desired result, and here's the way we need to accomplish it. Women look at it as a wedding, and XYZ has to happen in between. He's just saying nonsense. He's just saying whatever comes up in 3 neurons that are going off, okay? They just have a lot of uncomfortable moments. And his dad also said it's the way God ordained it. Josh becomes the authority at the wedding. He becomes her authority, not me. And that's the way God designed the transfer of authority. And it's a good design. So basically, women can never have authority over themselves. They must always have a man being authorized for them. Okay. So the logic is women cannot be responsible for themselves, and it needs to be a man. So God has the ultimate authority. And then a woman, usually it's their dad. And then once they get married, they're under their husband's authority. Now, when they get married, Jim Bob give Joshua a CD from like this guy named Ed Wheat, who is a pre-marriage counselor. It's a guide on how to quote instructions on how to be intimate and be available at all times. Oh, when you say CD, it's like a CD player CD. Oh, I thought it was cash deposit. I was like, oh, he gave him some cash. No, he gives like a CD video tutorial CD for the two of them to watch on their wedding night on how to be intimate and be available at all times. Be available at all times. That is what women are taught in certain circles of this religion, that you should be joyfully available for your husband at all times. Jim Bob explains it's so important for the man to learn to cherish his wife and for him to realize that it takes a lot longer for her to kind of get in the mood and stuff after they're married versus a man is instant on, instant off, but a woman, it takes time. Spoken like a true man who has never pleased a woman before. At the wedding, Josh sings a song of loyalty that goes like, when you have hard times and all the others are gone, I will be there. You know, when the troubles have come through sunshine or rain, when no help can be found, things may seem hopeless. Things may seem hopeless, but just look over. And if you think that I'm tone deaf, his is worse. His is worse. I will say how they get married is a lot. They were planning on courting, but Anna stated specifically that she did not want to officially start courting until she was 20 years old. Josh surprises her by proposing to her. They don't court. He proposes to her at her 20th birthday party, and she looks uncomfortable. What do you mean? So you mean like Anna's like, that's a stranger right there. Basically is trying to marry me? And she like looks surprised, and finally she whispers yes. And Michelle Duggar explains, Anna, since it was your 20th birthday and you had made that commitment to the Lord that you wouldn't court or get engaged or whatever until you turned 20, your daddy, had said he really wanted you to keep that commitment. So I guess Joshua and your daddy figured out all this together to surprise you. 3 months later, they're married. Anna goes from her dad's house in Florida to her husband's house in Arkansas. And people describe their relationship as a superfan meets religious royalty. Like Anna is just obsessed. She has never lived alone. She's never had a real job. She doesn't even have a driver's license for the first few years that they're married. And within a year of being married, she's pregnant with her first child. And they later become known as the M Kids. So they carry on the tradition of naming all their children with the very first initial. All their names start with an M. They're leaving the family size up to God. So they're just having as many children as God wills, right? But one thing to note that comes out during the scandal is while Anna Duggar and the M Kids are always spotted wearing $2 flip-flops because they don't really have a lot of money and there's a lot of kids, Joshua Duggar is out here spending $1,000 on Ashley Madison. MHM. Furthermore, a lot of people who personally knew Anna Duggar said that she was quite loud and opinionated before marrying Josh and just having babies back to back. They thought that slowly she started talking like Michelle Duggar, like just real soft, tone things down. Everything is what they call a pastor's wife whisper. They even use covenant eyes. So Anna was Joshua's accountability partner, but somehow he bypasses that to get on Ashley Madison and OkCupid and watch explicit videos, which is the whole point of the covenant eyes, but Anna stays. A lot of people feel a lot of sympathy, but they thought it was predictable that Anna would choose to stay with her husband. Everyone around them just spoke about it, as if Joshua Duggar was also a victim in this. Like that's how this whole scandal gets handled. Jim Bob, during a sermon, he's nervously giggling. I guess you've read it in the newspapers or seen it on TV, but we've gone through a lot of trials. Michelle says, I don't think I need to talk to Josh. I'm going to talk to our Heavenly Father after the medicine thing. I'm sorry. If my son is cheating on his wife and their children, I'm not talking to God. My fist is, that's not condoned. However, I will be very angry. Like it's just like crazy. She's talking about it as if later a bodyguard of the Duggars comes out because they had to get a bodyguard at one point, and allegedly the bodyguard claims that he was in the car with the Duggar group. And they drive up to Josh's car, and Josh is driving, and he's also like watching X-rated videos. He's like not even holding it near his leg under the wheel to be discreet, as per the AMA on Reddit. He said, quote, Josh kept his phone on a hands-free, like stuck onto the windshield, and there was just like, wait, hold on. He stuck it on where? His phone on a windshield, so he could drive hands-free, and there's just X-rated videos playing while he's driving. And he's just like, he knew that we were in the car. Either he didn't care or he didn't know. I don't know. But like, what do you expect from couples who follow the religious semi-cult leader? Some would call it a cult. I wouldn't call it a cult because cult leaders love giving reasons to do. But his name is Bill Gothard. More on him later. But on the website for IBLP, which is what they follow, Basic Life Principles, they have this article titled, Should I Confess My Secret Sin to My Wife, and How So? These are for husbands, and the article reads, in short, yes, you should. When you come clean with your wife by confessing moral failures, you will have a feeling of euphoria. It will seem as though hundreds of bricks have been taken off your shoulders. However, in a sense, your wife will now be carrying this burden. Now is when you say, thank you, God, for setting me free. I now choose to do whatever it takes to see that my wife is set free and healed from the truckload of stuff I have dumped on her. Another article says, God clearly says he hates divorce. Divorce is linked with treachery and violence in our day of increasing violence, even among Christians. May God give us the strength and courage to call divorce what God calls it, breaking a covenant. So when Joshua bypasses the covenant eyes to cheat on his wife, everyone just says, he's got to humble himself before God. Even Ben Shapiro tweets, the left don't target Josh Duggar because he's a garbage fire. They target him because he advocated Christian values. I don't know how you advocate Christian values when you're on Ashley Madison. Okay, but Anna chooses to stay. And some people can understand, given her circumstances, her religious background, and a lot of other couples who chose to stay together after the Ashley Madison leak. It's not just Christians. So if it were just that, maybe people could understand Anna Duggar, but they don't. Because the thing that confuses people is right around the time of the Ashley Madison leak and scandal that's happening, there's bigger problems. Like, the real reason Joshua Duggar never married Jim, Holts' daughter, it wasn't political differences. It's because the Holts found out that when Joshua Duggar was 15 years old, he molested his younger sisters and confessed to it. But did Anna and her family know about it? And just how long has everybody been covering for Josh Duggar? And what about his victims? And how is this connected to the two other Duggars that were arrested this year, like a month ago, for another one for crimes against children? Would Anna Duggar still have chosen to stay then if she knew that in a few years her husband Joshua Duggar would bypass the covenant system that they had in place and be arrested for downloading some of the worst CSAM content, including infants and children, that the federal investigation working on that case? They said it was one of the worst that they had ever seen. There are links to some of the content that he pulled, and it was linked to Daisy's destruction. And that is where I leave you. There's going to be the next part. We're going to go through Joshua's trial and then the two other Duggars' arrest.